Okay, let's start a new Illustrator file, and please forgive the background noise. I have a 3D printer in the same room with me that's printing something. But anyways, let's click on this to get a nice large canvas. I don't like to see the transparent background, so I hit Control-Shift-D. You might want to do the same. Now let's click on the text tool, because what I want to do in this tutorial is have you create some kind of shiny text with a shadow behind it. So click the text tool, just click once and it'll draw that. Hit escape and it'll jump out of that mode. Then hold shift while you drag the corner so you can make it nice and large. Then let's double click so it gets the cursor inside there, and hit Control A so it grabs everything. And then let's make a fake company called My Job. And now let's do, I want to make this have a gradient, and as far as I know there could be a way to do a gradient on a text, but as far as I know so far there's not. So the way that I do know how to do that, and by the way I think that's probably true of all these applications, is there's many ways to do it, but the one that I'm familiar with, and the one I want to show you, is to go Object, Expand, and Ungroup. And so now you'll notice I can click on each letter, but I can't double click and then type. I can't change the text anymore because it's broken apart into like an object. So while it's in this state, I'm going to hit Control C. I'm going to select everything, Control C, go to the layers. This will be, let's call this black text, or maybe it might not remain black. Let's say main text. And then let's make another layer called shadow, and let's put that underneath the main text. Make sure you pull past it. If you let go like this, it'll do something else. It'll make it a sub-layer, but pull it down below it. And then what we want to do is, notice there's nothing on that layer yet, but if you remember a moment ago we hit Control C, so the clipboard of your computer is actually hanging on to it. Now I'm going to hit Control Shift V. Control Shift V will paste it in exactly the same place as you got it. So now if you look real close, there's two copies, and I can hide. There's one on this layer, there's one on that layer. Now this one, if I'm going to leave it hidden, I'm going to leave this main text hidden. I'm going to unhide the shadow so we can see what's going on with that. I'm going to go up here and apply an effect to it called blur. Let's just go with the Gaussian blur. And oh, nothing's selected, so that's why it's not. Got to have that selected, and then we go blur, Gaussian blur, and you can see now it's kind of blurry. And let's just leave it at 5. You can change it, make it larger value or smaller value. Actually, I might also decrease the opacity. Opacity is how transparent it is, and maybe we'll go 75. 75. Gotta make sure I have it selected when I do that. Okay, so now I'm going to bring this other text back, and you can see faintly behind it there's kind of a shadow. Well, I'm going to click on this layer, make sure I select everything, and then I'm going to use the down arrow, right arrow, and just keep doing down, right, until it's offset enough to where it looks like. Now I'm going to hit Control 1 to jump back out, and I'll hit the V tool and then click off so it lets go and I can admire how it's looking. So that's step 1. Now let's do the main text. I'm going to lock this shadow layer because I'm pretty much done with it. And then I'm going to click on, if you click right here, it grabs everything in that layer. Unfortunately, I don't think you can grab everything any other way. Like if you click here, it's not grabbing everything. So it's a little known secret. Click right there, and then we'll go to gradient. Actually, there's no gradient applied yet. If we go up here and just pull this window open, there's a black and white gradient. Let's just grab that. Now, obviously the gradient is being applied separately for every letter, and I don't want that. I want to go up here to Object, Compound, Path, Make. That will sort of combine everything into one object, and that is better for my purposes. Now I'm going to change the gradient, rotate it. I'm going to hold Shift so it'll rotate, constrained to an angle or vertical. And let's see, I'm going to bring this back up. And so now you can see we have a nice gradient. And it sounds like my print job is done. But anyways, so that is a cool effect. And with gradients, it tends to be best to keep them kind of subtle. So the more I spread this out, the more subtle it will be. So it's not going so drastically from white to dark. And that looks good. And it might actually be nice to give it a small path offset. Let's go Object, Path, Offset Path. And let's not have it be too large. Let's go with 5. And if you hit preview a couple times, it'll toggle back and forth. And now I think I'll actually do like 3. That way there's just a small outline. And yeah, so now we've got an offset. And what I think I want to do is I want to actually click on, what does that give me if I click that? Okay, so that's basically when I click here, I see it's grabbing all of these things, and then I guess that's because they're a compound path, so they're one object. In other words, if I try to move one, they all move together. So I think I should be able to just, even without putting on its own layer, I can use the gradient tool to reverse it. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to hold Shift while I do it, and then I'll drag it back down, and now you can kind of see what I'm getting at. It reverses the gradient, and that gives it kind of a three-dimensional effect. Yeah. Actually, I think I want it to be the opposite so I'm going to select the outer. No, that looks good. I think I need to just adjust the gradient a little bit. Maybe bring it down. Yeah, that's a little better. So there you go. And I can, one more step, I'm going to click on this layer so it grabs, actually no, that's 2 items, right? There's the smaller text and then the larger outline text. Let me grab this text, the smaller text, the text that's not the outline, and hit Control C, and now I'm going to make a new layer and paste it right in place. So Control Shift V, and now I think I'll hide everything except for that, because here's what I want to do. I'm going to zoom in somewhat, and I'm going to use the gradient tool, only this time I want it to be really small, and I'm actually going to want to try to just create a stripe. So let's look at the gradient over here, and actually let me spread that back out and double click in the middle. So here's what I want. The middle one I want it to be white, and I don't mind the outer one being white too, but I want it to be transparent, so 0 opacity. And then this one I'm going to turn it white also, but 0 opacity. So you can't really see it right now because the background's white, but if I bring those layers back into view, I'm not seeing it very well there. Let me go back to this, and because it's scooted down maybe. Yeah, so now I want to squish the range. Let me use shift. If you hold shift, you can move the artboard. Yeah, there we go. So I just want it to look like a shiny kind of spot. And now let's zoom out, let go, and that was my intended. I might actually scoot that down a little more. Let me experiment with putting that shiny stripe a little lower. Yeah, I think that looks good. So there you go. Save it in your drive and you're done.